Okay, zoning board, we are live. We are recording. Phone lines are open. Go for it.
Thank you, Matt, and welcome everybody to the Town of East Hampton Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for February 6, 2024. We have public hearings this evening. However, we have one canceled public hearing. I'll just read that. That is, the applicant is Brett Lacalzo at 149 Mulford Lane in Amagansett, tax map number 300-84-2-7, and that public hearing is canceled. Now enter our scheduled public hearing. Our first public hearing this evening is Paul Bronzo at 65 Jacqueline Drive, Amagansett, Suffolk, tax map number 300-176-1-19. The size and location, it's 8,296 square feet at 65 Jacqueline Drive, Beach, Hampton, Section 5, Lots 17 through 19, Block 22, map number 1763 in Amagansett. The description is to construct a 555 square foot second story addition and an upgraded sanitary system, a parcel of land containing freshwater wetlands, duneland, and beach vegetation. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420 of the East Hampton Town Code, and one variance is required for this application. One variance of 88.4 feet is required from 255-430 of the Town Code to construct the proposed additions 11.6 feet from freshwater wetlands where a 100-foot setback is required and any other relief necessary. The zoning district is B residence, 8E flood zone, elevation 10, and the secret class is type 2. Council, do we have proper affidavit of service and posting?
I have affidavits and receipts of mailing. Everything appears to be in order, and the board has jurisdiction over this application.
Thank you. And before we move further, I just, as a matter of disclosure, I want to say that the agent for the application is Britton Bistry, and her husband, John M. Taj, works for me as an independent contractor. I went to the ethics board, and the ethics board came down with a determination that does not require recusal. However, it does require disclosure. So I'm making that as long as I don't have an interest, financial or otherwise, and I don't with this application. So just wanted to disclose that right off the bat. Who's?
It's mine.
Okay, Jane, go for it.
Thank you. Good evening, applicants and public. So this is a snap I took today of the revised posting. It was, you'll see I had postings from, this was originally scheduled for January 9th, but they did repost with the new date. So I just wanted to confirm that in visual. Next slide. Okay, this is, there's two front lots, front yards on this house. It's on the corner of Central Avenue and Jacqueline. This is looking at the house from the Central Avenue side. That was the original posting. Just you can see the house is set back and, has the vegetation in front of it and a lot of sandy soil. Next slide. Sorry. This is also looking at the house from Central. Next slide. This is looking at the house from the Jacqueline side. You can see the driveway to the left, and you'll be able to see you can see back to where the wetlands are that are shared of the property just north of this. Next slide, 3. This is just a sort of neighborhood view on Jacqueline, get a sense of the street. Next slide. This is the same view on Marine Boulevard, again of the neighborhood. Next slide. Okay. God, I can't even see from here. This is, you can skip that, sorry. No, I don't know what that is. This is the view looking the other way down towards Marine Boulevard. That's the intersection of Central Avenue. You can skip that. You can skip that. Sorry, I thought I took these out. You can skip that as well. Sorry. Okay. Let me skip that. Sorry, I read a little. Okay, so this is looking at the can't see. These are out of order. Okay. This is looking at the house. You can see one of the decks. You can see how much vegetation is surrounding all these and how close the vegetation is to the house. Next slide. These are all out of order. Sorry. You can keep going. Sorry. Okay. This is the southwest, sorry, the west north corner, east west. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. This is the corner of the house where you see the deck. That is the north side of the house. Going, next slide. Here again, this is the side of the house that is the west side of the house. The neighbor is next door. You can see where the car is, and then the front facade is on Central Avenue. I think that's where, okay, that's another view of the Central Avenue side of the house with the deck. Keep going, sorry. Okay, this is the north side of the house. As you come off the driveway, there's a deck there, and that's wrapping around to the back side, the west side of the house. That's a better view of the deck that's on the north side of the house, the tank underneath it. I don't know in the application if those are going to be rebuilt. Next slide. Same on the deck. Going. The entrance to the house is up, I believe, off of that deck. The one thing I didn't point out is that space, it's like cinder block, that is not counted as a story. There's a garage in there. I guess we'll confirm what else might be in there. But that is the entrance to the house as I understand it. Keep going. Going. Skip that. Same thing. You can see the driveway. Okay, skip that too. This is on the, this is towards that stairway, and you have a outdoor shower, I believe, right next to the garage. That's on the Jacqueline side of the house. Slide. And this is just a street view from closer. I think that might be it. Is that it? Yeah, thank you. Sorry about that. Thank
you. Do we have the applicant or agent to the applicant tonight?
Good evening,
Hi, Britton.
Chairman Deline, members of the board.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Good evening, Britton Bistrian, representing Paul Bronzo, who's the owner of 65 Jacqueline Drive in Beach Hampton. I'm joined this evening by both the project architect, Bruce Siska, as well as the project civil engineer, Drew Bennett. This parcel was part of a 1950s subdivision and was improved in 1966 with the current residence. The latest CO was from 1989 for a one-story, one-family residence with decks and a built-in garage. Everything in the property, as refreshing as it is to say this, is covered under the CO, and there are no accessory structures at all on the parcel. The project in front of you is an application to construct a 550 square foot second floor addition, completely contained within the footprint of the existing residence, and install a low nitrogen IA septic system. Currently, the drainage is not handled on site, and Drew has designed a very successful manner in which to control the runoff on site. And I will let him come up here because there's some information, some questions in the TAM that I think Drew would be the best to address. So I will step aside shortly and let him speak to the sanitary design and the drainage. This project is in keeping with the cottage style, two-story small residences as was historically seen in the area of Beach Hampton. The total square footage of the residence with the proposed addition will be 1,670 square feet. The house has never been added onto since it was built in 1966, and nor has it ever completed a zoning board review in front of your board. The current owner has owned the house for over 30 years and is looking to add on to the two-bedroom house to accommodate his family. Currently, the bedrooms are quite small. They're 9 by 9, which is only slightly larger than a prison cell. So it's not We feel that the project in front of you to add these 2 bedrooms is a pretty modest ask after 30 years of living in the house. There is no area on the parcel that would not require a variance because of the siting of the wetlands. Although it is self-created, we feel that it meets the standards and that's the minimum required to meet the needs of the applicant. It'll have little to no impact on the neighborhood since all the improvements are contained within the existing footprint. It also doesn't encroach any closer to the wetlands on the parcel than the existing house. The proposed second floor is compliant to all dimensional setbacks, including height and the pyramid law, which was a bit of a challenge on this lot because of its topography. And in summation, we feel that this is tastefully and sensitively designed, modest size, significant mitigation to upgrade a single cesspool that's almost 60 years old to an IA low nitrogen system and control the runoff on site, when we all know that it's very problematic in Beach Hampton, especially with runoff. I didn't see any letters that were in the file. I always get hesitant saying that because sometimes they come in when I'm on my way here. And all the mitigation that was suggested in the TAM is acceptable to the applicant. If you'd like for me to step aside and have Drew address the septic and drainage, I can do that now.
Sure.
And then I can have questions.
How are you, Drew?
I'm good. Good evening. My name is Drew Bennett, consulting engineer on behalf of the owner applicant.
Drew, do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
So the TAM raised some issues about drainage and the septic system, which I was responsible for. So as the board pointed out in the photographs, the site is well vegetated at this point in time, and vegetation is pretty much right up to the side of the house. So Britton pointed out that the starting point here is a cesspool that's likely to be in groundwater, and we're proposing to upgrade it with a innovative alternative on-site wastewater treatment system. I'll point out, first of all, before we talk about siting, is that it's the smallest system possible. While it's suitable for up to 4 bedrooms, it is literally the minimum size system. We're utilizing an AN400, which is the smallest unit they make for low nitrogen, and we're also utilizing pressurized shallow drain field, which reduces the footprint of the drainage area, as well as allows us to be 2 feet above the water table, which is important. I'd also like to point out that even if we weren't doing the addition, if the owner was doing this voluntarily, we would still be left with the same set of balancing act here in terms of where best to site the septic system. So there's basically 3 locations on the property. It's a relatively small lot. It can either be the northeast corner. Do you mind if I go and point to the map? I think it'd be easier.
I do not mind. I think it's a touch
Yeah, I
screen.
think the new microphone system is set up to hear you.
Okay, good. Okay, so
That will let us know.
north is in this direction. This is Jacqueline, this is Central, and we're proposing to put the treatment unit here in the front yard adjacent to the driveway and put the pressurized shallow drain field in the southeast corner of the property, which is here, which is in the same vicinity as the existing cesspools. The other 2 locations that we could talk about are the northwest corner and the northeast corner. We looked at all 3 locations, and in our judgment, this was the best location. The I have to keep my directions straight here. The northwest corner is got some relatively mature woody plants and trees. And when we sited the leaching field here, one, we'd have to relocate the existing water service, but we were actually closer to the wetland. When we moved this into this corner, 5 feet off the property line and 5 feet off the property line, we ended up 12 feet off of the wetland area. This current configuration is actually 15.1, I believe. So in our judgment, because of the trees, which were fairly mature, and it didn't really gain us anything in terms of wetland setbacks, we didn't find that to be a superior site. And we also looked at this location in the northeast corner, and it ends up being several feet from this little pocket wetland here. So we felt pretty, there's no perfect site here, but we felt that this was the best configuration in our judgment. So if you had any questions on that, I'm further, I'm happy to answer them, but
Yeah, the means and methods for getting that pipe past that little pocket wetland there.
yeah, so in some of the photographs, you'll notice that this area actually is fairly open. There's two large pitch pines, one that's already fallen over, the other one is falling over. So this area actually opens up nicely and you can gain access to it from the street pretty easily without having to clear a lot of big trees. This corner of the property is also pretty clear. There's one tree, small tree that's close to the house that'll probably have to come out. But this is a 4-inch pipe and then it goes to 1.25 inch diameter tubing, basically, that's relatively shallow. And we don't anticipate any problems in terms of hand excavating this to the leaching system itself. Again, it's very small plastic pipe, doesn't need to be buried deeply at all. So we think that that's quite feasible.
So I think the concern that we have, as well as the planning department, is the protection of that wetland.
Right, but in the photographs, you'll see that alongside of the deck, it's clear. And the trench, again, these are 1-inch diameter pipes that'll be next to each other is
Yeah.
like an irrigation line. It's a good way to do this, and the excavation is less than a foot wide, and it's probably 2 feet deep at the most, so it's, it can be done by hand, and I would expect it to be done by hand.
All right, could you notate in your drawings to be done by hand?
Sure. Happy to do that. And then as far as the drainage is, can we switch to drainage?
Yes.
Okay, so right now, the house has no, go back to the map first. Not so fast. So right now, there's no drainage control on the property. It's relatively low. The water table's at elevation 4. You can see some of the site grades, 5.3, 5.8, 6.1. It's pretty low. So traditionally, we would use a dry well and tie the gutters into it. But in this case, if we used a 2-foot deep dry well, a couple things will happen. One is it would end up being in a water table, buried deep enough, and two, because of all the vegetation, a concrete dry well requires a big piece of equipment, and you'd have to actually do more clearing to get a dry well in. So what we'd like to do is, we came up with a strategy of trying to tread as lightly as we can on this particular property, basically using a infiltration swale or trench. It's basically a gravel-filled trench. Again, along this area here, it's in an area that's already, there's a tree canopy, but there's already like moss. It's not native, so to speak. And so that's another thing that can be done. It's a 12-inch deep trench that's filled with gravel that can be brought in by a wheelbarrow and placed there. And it's sized, when you account for infiltration, we have very good sandy soils here that the water dissipates pretty quickly, that it's a very effective drainage method. We've used it a couple other places. We've used it at the Meadow Club in Southampton, adjacent to Cooper's Neck Pond, where we had very shallow depth of groundwater. And we're also designing one, hopefully for Springs Presbyterian Church, adjacent to Accabonac Harbor, which has received a CPF water quality grant. Again, it's a relatively, it's been around a while, but it's very light construction methods and works very effectively in these types of soils.
Thank you. Any questions?
All the water from the roof then will go into that drainage trench that you
Correct.
just described?
Correct.
And you sized it accordingly, you just said?
Correct.
Based on the volume you can anticipate coming from a heavy downfall?
Yeah, there's a design storm, right, that's in the town code that we applied to it. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Anybody have any questions?
Well, what's the capacity of it? You may have said that in the document somewhere, but I didn't see it. The amount it can handle?
Bruce, maybe not, I don't know if you know the capacity, but what is your design criteria for it?
Oh, it's designed for the 2-inch rainfall, which is per town code.
All right, so
2-inch rainfall in 24 hours?
24-hour rainfall, that's correct.
I have a question about the existing sanitary system that will be no longer used. I'm a little new at this, so forgive me, but sometimes I do see that people don't remove the existing system, they just abandon them. And given that it would require less disturbance on that corner of the lot, could it be just abandoned and left rather than excavating to pull it out? Because, there's sort of scrubby, sandy kind of character
So
like.
the answer is yes and no. In this particular location, you'll notice that there's 3 cesspools tied together, and that the new drain field is over 2 of them. So those 2 would have to come out. Typically, we'd take all 3 out, but if the board feels strongly that you want to leave the 3rd one here, abandoned in place, which you take the cover off and fill it with clean sand, that's something that we can amend and manage easily. It's up to the board.
In terms of your opinion, leaving it in or leaving it out, of if there were to be native vegetation planted there, would the root system be suffered if it was left there? I'm just saying.
I'm trying to answer your question. I have to think
I'm
about
trying
it.
to figure out what's better, to leave it there or take it out in long
I run into this quite a bit
term.
with our landscape friends, and it really depends on what you're planting over it. So if this is beach grass, the answer is no. I don't anticipate that you would be planting large trees over it. If you were planting a large tree over it, possibly, but I don't expect that. So the short answer is probably not. Probably not.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
It's also, that third pool is closer to the wetlands than the other 2.
Correct.
So that's another reason for us to want it to be left.
I'm sure it was very disturbed in 1966 when they were building the house, but it's, now the property's pretty overgrown, I think most people would say. So I guess it would be less impactful if we left the 3rd one there. So we have no, if that's what the board desires, we're happy to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Any questions for Britton? No?
Well,
Is there anybody in the public that would like to address this application?
we haven't heard from,
Oh, I'm sorry, we go to planning department, Kyle.
Tyler Borsek from the
Do you
planning
swear
board.
affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Excuse me. So the subject property is situated in the northwest corner of Jacqueline Drive and Central Avenue in Amagansett. Property is currently before the ZBA seeking approvals in order to construct a 555 square foot second-story addition over the existing first floor and to construct an upgraded sanitary system. Significant wetlands exist on the west portion of the lot, a small wetland on the southern portion of the lot, and significant wetlands across to the east side of Jacqueline Drive. These wetlands have been contiguous may have been contiguous at one point, but have become fragmented over time with the development of the surrounding properties. The parcel is in the Beach Hampton area of Amagansett. Beach Hampton area was established in the early 1900s for cottage-style summer residences. Beach Hampton has low elevations and high groundwater table. Any increased construction within the area could contribute to the gradual elimination of the natural characteristics on the parcel and in the area, cause an increase in surface runoff, reduce the duneland characteristics of the area, and could increase the cumulative impacts of sanitary effluent in a densely developed neighborhood. The wetlands within jurisdiction of the property are high-quality, diverse wetlands, which contain standing water throughout the year and can be expected to provide the same benefits as any quality freshwater wetlands, especially the attenuation of floodwaters, provisions of high-quality wetland habitat, and the reduction of pollutants prior to groundwater recharge. The proposed project includes additions to the second story over the existing first story, which will bring the property right up to the 50% cap limitation on the ZBA. Section 255-860 of the town code limits the expansion of non-conforming portions of non-conforming structures to 50% of the gross floor area of that structure when it became non-conforming. The existing residence on this property is 1,115 square feet, all of which is non-conforming to setbacks, which will allow an expansion of 557.5 square feet. The 50% cap is not a guaranteed right to expansion, rather a hard limit on the ZBA's ability to grant variances in perpetuity. The proposed additions include 2 bedrooms and a bathroom, with also getting access to that second story. The existing residence on this constrained property is a modest 2-bedroom home with limited accessory structures. Included in the project is an upgraded IA sanitary system, which is centrally located between 2 wetlands, set back 15.1 feet from the wetlands to the north. The applicant should speak to the proposed location for the sanitary system and address if this is the best location available, which it seems like they have given you at least enough information to make that determination on. The sanitary system may be in the best location available, but the applicant should explain then how that is the best option. With such a constrained property, any opportunity to increase setbacks should be explored to help reduce the impacts of the improvements on the property, and sound reasoning should be given to the ZBA as to why the sanitary system is proposed in this location. The project also includes an unusual method of handling roof runoff. The applicants are proposing to pipe runoff to an infiltration swale planted with American beach grass. And you got more details on that. But overall, the applicant needs to show that the proposed design will be as effective as more traditional leaders and gutters to dry walls without unnecessary impacts on the surrounding wetlands and neighboring properties. Additionally, the applicant should address if this type of runoff control can be adequately covenanted. The long-term maintenance and function of the system will need to be ensured in the covenants required by the ZBA, and the board should be sure that it is something that is not only possible but practical. The board may want the town attorney's office to weigh in on the feasibility of covenanting this type of runoff control as well. Generally, the planning department would be opposed to any increase in the footprint of this residence, given how non-conforming the existing residence is. However, a second-story addition over the first story is a more reasonable request and the most practical avenue to add additional living space to the residence. The increase in the size of the residence should be looked at closely, as 1,670 square foot residence located only 11 feet from the edge of wetlands, with sanitary system located only 15 feet from wetlands, may be more than is appropriate for the parcel. The property is severely undersized for zoning and constrained with significant wetlands. Increasing the size of the improvements, even with the included mitigation, may be more than is appropriate. The proposed additions within the footprint of the existing residence is the more logical way to expand the residence and the sanitary system upgrade, even if a requirement will help to mitigate the increase in the size. The board should discuss what additional mitigation measures are appropriate for the project. A strict clearing envelope and project limiting fencing should be adhered to in order to limit the impacts of additional unnecessary clearing and disturbance. The board may also want to consider establishing a scenic easement over the wetlands on the northeast side of the parcel to help, northwest side of the parcel to help protect them in perpetuity. The scenic easement is the best tool the ZBA has at their disposal to protect such sensitive areas in perpetuity. And other than that, I can answer any questions you might have.
Drew Bennett came out in front of us and just explained the two options they considered for septic. And he told us the logic for where they arrived at what it being, and you said we should question, how the septic has been, is going to be installed. Was there a reason that you might think that using the other corner would be in any advantage?
My only thought was that it could, if you shifted it to the east side of the lot and ran it north to south, that maybe you could get some additional distance, but it seems like they looked at that and it didn't seem like a feasible option, or at least they didn't get any significant setbacks increase from wetlands. But that was my only thought. Where else it could potentially go would be on the east side of the lot, somewhere where like the driveway is right now, which would then require, of course, shifting the driveway around and more additional disturbance from that. But it was just, it's since it's such a tight lot, every option should be explored essentially.
And tight, wherever it goes, it's going to be tight to the
Exactly,
wetland.
yeah.
And the more significant portion of the wetlands does sit to the north of the project here.
Absolutely, yes, yeah.
Right. Okay.
Tyler, can you briefly describe the project limiting fence and how you see it?
I put a sketch into the technical analysis memo. I'll pull it up. So that's the idea that I put out there, was to try and keep it along the clearing envelope where possible, and then around, obviously, for putting the sanitary system in, they're going to need some space to do that. But that's ultimately mostly along the clearing envelope as it's going to be for construction purposes.
It looks too as if the sanitary can be installed largely from either road. It's not like we're crossing the property in any great length here. They'll be on the property, of course, to disturb it, but I'm saying that it's not as if we have to put in these, either corner here where they're proposing. There's nothing for us to have to cross any portion of the property, take down an awful lot of trees, except.
Yeah, I don't know what the road right of way on the Central Avenue side. I can't remember off the top of my head what kind of vegetation is between the road and their access there. I'm not sure.
On the north side of that, you take the limiting fence kind of like on a diagonal to the property line, is that right? Is that what I'm seeing? It's hard to see.
Correct, yeah.
But and that's because they're going to be putting that swale in, I imagine,
Right.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
But I think we thought about that swale. There is some natural vegetation up in there, is there not?
As of now, yeah, there's some.
So I'm wondering if that swale, if we can somehow protect that from construction activity or limit it except for the swale
Itself.
construction or something.
Yeah.
Rather than have constant construction activity getting into that.
So, yeah, certainly we could always modify the project limiting fencing areas. If we wanted a different sketch to be included with any approval, we could make a new one.
And can I ask, the corner of the deck on the north side, I mean, it's so close to the wetland, it's not even 5 feet. So are you confident that, and again, I'm assuming the deck is going to be rebuilt in this project? I don't know if I saw it called out, but are you confident that they can work that tight around that side and corner?
That would be up to the applicants to, to figure that
I
out.
think so, but I think if
Is it
they,
going to be rebuilt?
I don't know, is it?
I think Ed, you would think so too, right?
Yeah.
The existing deck?
The existing deck?
Yeah.
Is it going to
Yeah,
be?
it's on the CO.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, it's going to be rebuilt, I'm just
Oh,
asking.
I don't believe so, but I'm not 100%.
Oh, it won't be? Oh, then we'll make it easier.
And the suggested area for the scenic easement would be between that project limiting fence and the wetland up there?
I imagine over the wetlands
The whole
themselves,
wetlands.
probably not much else, because there's really no room between the house and the wetlands, and, on that side.
Okay.
If one was established, that's what I would imagine would be
And it
probably
is
the idea.
pushing up, increasing nonconformity, already nonconforming house.
Does the drainage swale require a variance, or no? It's not a structure, it's a,
Generally, we don't require variances for structures that would be mitigation type measures. And additionally, it's not really a structure, it's
Right.
gravel. And just drainage structures in general, we don't generally require variances for such a thing.
Any other questions?
No.
Thank you, Tyler. Thank you. Does anybody in the public like to address this application? Matt, anybody on the phone?
You have 0 callers. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one more question for Britton, if I may.
Britton, come on up. Brit.
And maybe actually the architect's here. So I'm just looking at the east elevation, and I'm not quite sure. Are you going to take that part that's in front of the addition on the east side and create a deck there? I almost feel like I'm looking at a railing in this elevation.
No.
Oh, okay.
You're talking about the driveway, the main driveway on Jacqueline?
Yeah, I'm looking,
Yes.
I'm looking above, the
Yep,
side where the
just a
garage
second,
is.
just a second-story GFA addition.
Right, no, I just was looking at the east elevation, and it looks like there's a deck railing being put there. That's what was, I didn't know what
Yeah,
that
that's just
was.
the lower roof.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
And to address the question that came up earlier about the garage is just the garage doors that you see. It opens to a garage space, and you can't get into the house. And then the other part is just
Just
unfinished. Nothing, there's nothing, you can't access the house from underneath. It's just a garage.
Mechanical spaces on that level behind the garage, is that what that is?
No, there's nothing
There's nothing there.
down there.
Did an engineer need to look at the, I guess at cinder block, that first level? Is that clear that that will support the addition on the
I
top of the
think
house?
my answer to that would typically you have a licensed architect. That's his responsibility to deal with that structure.
Thank you.
I don't have anything further.
Thank you.
So just be clear on whether is the public record open for Drew to make the modification to his plan to keep the one leaching pool and to do the trenching work by hand? Is that the,
No, that could be
or
a
you can do it as a
That
condition
could be
of
a
approval to
condition.
make
I
his
think,
minor
yeah.
notations? Okay, so then I request that we close the record.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Let me close it up.
Yes. In the matter of Paul Bronzo, 65 Jacqueline Drive, Amagansett, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-176-01-19, make a motion to close the hearing and, are we leaving the record open? No, and close the record as well.
I'll second that.
I concur.
Concur.
I concur. Thank you. Next, we have the Surf Lodge at 183 South Edgemere Street, Montauk, Suffolk, tax map number 300-27-3-14. The size and location is 56,740.66 square feet at 183 South Edgemere Street, Montauk. The description is to construct a 645 square foot retractable awning as part of an existing trellis within setbacks of and on a parcel of land containing freshwater wetlands and within front yard line setbacks. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420 of the East Hampton Town, and 2 variances are required for this application. 1 variance of 95 feet is required from 255-430 of the Town Code in order to construct a proposed awning 5 feet from freshwater wetlands where a 100-foot setback is required. 1 variance of approximately 46 feet from 255-1110 of the Town Code is required in order to construct the awning 4 feet from the western front yard lot line where a 50-foot setback is required and any other relief necessary. The zoning district is B residence, Zone X flood zone, and the secret class is type 2. And council, do we have proper affidavit of service and posting?
I have an affidavit. It appears everything is in order. I thought it was actually interesting. They did post it. There were no adjacent neighbors required for notice, so the affidavit just speaks to that. The board has
you.
jurisdiction over this application.
Who is this, you?
This is mine. Yeah, so this hearing was also previously scheduled, so it was reposted again for this hearing. This is the updated posting that was there. You have the photos from the previous, right? Yeah, okay. So now, that first shot was standing near the posting, and I just turned, you can see there's unimproved land on the other side of the street. This is on South Edgeworth Street in Montauk. Next. Now that's a shot looking, I believe, toward town, toward the south side, Montauk. And next. And that's just a shot looking up in the other direction toward the train station and firehouse and all that. Next. Now this is what I did was go in. I didn't go around the entire property. I went to the back portion on the kind of the northwestern side of the Surf Lodge toward the industrial road portion of it. And now I'm taking a shot in the direction, you can see the trellis where the awning is proposed to go over. And then I'm going to walk in there and take a few more shots. Next. This was a shot behind, there's a stockade garbage enclosure on the property. And behind that, they had this little deck way that I only took because in the TAM it does recommend some revegetation maybe. I don't know if anything can be done with that, but it's very limited as to what can be done. Next. So that's another angle of that shot. You're seeing across Fort Pond. It's looking in the southwesterly direction. And again, to get a better size of the awning basically is going to be, it's retractable, but it'll be covering that entire trellis area. Next. Now it's standing on the water side. This is actually the front yard, considered the front yard because it's on Fort Pond. And I'm standing at the edge of the fence in that area where the wetlands are. And that's just a shot down into the water from that location. Next. And it's just another view of the trellis as it exists today, or the structure where it is. And I may have one more from yet another angle toward the 2-story building that's on the property. And I think that's it, Tyler.
Thank you. We have the agent, Tara.
Good evening, Tara Berg from Lighthouse Land Planning.
Tara, do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for that synopsis, Member Berger. As I said, I'm Tara Burke from Lighthouse Land Planning, here on behalf of the Surf Lodge. This parcel is B residence and contains 2 legally pre-existing non-conforming commercial uses in the form of a restaurant and a motel. The most recent CO was issued in 2020 for a 500 square foot interior alteration to an additional bathrooms and an alteration of door locations and the reconstruction of a building due to vehicle damage. And before that, the entire property was CO'd in 2019. I don't know if some of you may have been on the board then. We worked very hard to bring the whole property into compliance. So the subject application, as noted, is for approval to construct a 645.5 square foot retractable awning to be mounted on an existing trellis over the existing deck on the northwest side of the parcel. The awning is meant to serve as a shade covering for the existing and legal outdoor dining area. Currently, they sort of weave some vines over the top of the trellis to provide a little bit of shade, and they're just looking for something a bit more effective. Two variances are requested, both from the wetlands, 95 feet, and from the front property line of 46 feet, because the Fort Pond is the water side, which is the front yard here. With respect to the variances and the natural resource special permit standards, we do not believe that the awning will cause an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood or cause detriment to the nearby properties. As noted, the outdoor dining area is existing, and the trellis for which the awning is mounted on is also existing. There's no change of use. There's no change in the intensity of use. There's no visual changes proposed other than when the awning is out. The benefit cannot be achieved by some other method other than the area variance. As noted, this is an existing outdoor dining area, and the majority of the property is within variance jurisdiction. The requested variance may appear significant at first glance, just to the distances to the wetlands and the property lines. However, we're dealing with this pre-existing situation. So, and like I said, it's over 2 already approved existing structures. No additional improvements are proposed, and the rest of the property will remain the same. Nothing is being changed. And the awning is retractable, so we don't anticipate any major impacts on runoff or drainage on the property. The intention is to have it retracted and then only open it when we need to for shade. And that's really all I have on this, unless you have any questions.
Any questions?
Just to be clear, the trellis is part of the existing CO. It
That's
was in
correct.
existence there, so it is part of the existing CO.
Yep, and we verified that with the building department and the town attorney's office before submitting the application.
Okay, thank you.
And just for the record, your renderings for the architect for this, it notes the dimensions are approximate, contractor to verify infield prior to construction. So there's no plan to make the trellis bigger, it's all going to be,
Nope, it's all existing, and
when you say dimensions are approximate, what does that mean?
From a layman's point of view, that's to go and field verify that the that the trellis gets built to the existing size. That's all it is. It's a
And-
verification.
right, once we, if you so choose to approve the variance, we can't go beyond that
Okay,
size.
that was
Yeah.
what I was
And
thinking.
we
Thank
do,
you.
on the note of we have architecture review board approval for it
Okay,
as well.
thanks very much, Tara.
Here from Tyler.
Questions?
I don't know if you can address that. Tyler did mention possibly some revegetation. I did want to, can I correct the statement I said earlier when I was looking at the photos? I called these boxes over here where I took a shot of the water behind it. I called it the garbage enclosure. It's not, they're just boxes. But anyway, but I don't know if that's an area that could possibly have some revegetation in.
Oh, that one picture where you showed?
Yeah, the deck,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
I called it the wrong thing.
And I mean, just on the note of the revegetation, I think Tyler did mention, and he'll obviously go through his TIM, but there's not a significant amount of space for it. And the potential impacts of the awning are also limited enough that additional mitigation may not be necessary in this specific case. Normally, I wouldn't, I'm always for revegetation. I'm just not so sure how, a 3-foot area on the side of an embankment is going to actually help do much other than just say we asked for revegetation. I'm not so sure it's going to be an environmental gain to that.
Thank you.
Okay. Tyler.
Tyler?
Alan Borsek for the planning department again. So overall, the proposed project is limited in scope and a minor change to the existing conditions on the property. As the proposed awning is located only 5 feet from the wetlands of Fort Pond, careful consideration is needed on the potential impacts. In fact, any proposed changes on the subject property need to be carefully reviewed to ensure that no significant additional impacts will be associated with the proposed changes, considering the significant improvements that already exist on the parcel and how constrained the property already is. In the subject application, the proposed awning is retractable and should have minimal impacts on runoff as it is located over an existing trellis and decking. No additional improved areas are proposed and the use on the property will remain unchanged. Because the awning is retractable, attached to an existing trellis and over an existing deck, the planning department does not expect any significant short-term or long-term environmental impacts, even considering how close the proposed structure is to wetlands. Fort Pond is susceptible to increased detrimental impacts from increased improvements in the surrounding area, which leads to additional runoff contamination. However, in the application for the ZBA, the proposed awning is retractable and over existing improved areas, so the planning department does not have any significant concerns. And as Tara sort of already mentioned, we had mentioned, what potential mitigation could be offered. However, there's not really a significant amount of space for additional revegetation. And given the limited impacts of the awning, there may not be mitigation even necessary in this specific case. In addition to the wetland variances, there are significant front yard variances required, but that's obviously because it fronts on Fort Pond, and the impacts of a front yard variance in this case are probably minimal also. So other than that, I can answer any questions you might have.
So when the awning's open, there's going to be, and it rains, there's going to be more runoff. Could that potentially be any impact to the Fort Pond?
Yeah, I mean, there certainly would be marginally more runoff compared to the deck that's there. But we didn't see it as being, it's not a large area, it's not a significant structure that they're proposing, and the increase in runoff is probably marginal. It does sheet off to the sides and not, just not directed towards Fort Pond, which is also, I think, probably, it's not, I don't know if it's by design, but it's certainly a better design than if it were to be sheeting towards Fort Pond. It'll end up on that deck anyways, in that case. So we weren't terribly concerned with the project as a whole.
Okay.
Any other
No other
questions?
questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody in the public like to address this application? Not anybody on the phone?
You have 0 callers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, actually, I just want to confirm with Tara, the survey data, just want to confirm that for May 31st, 2019. That is the latest one, right? That's the latest survey date.
Yes, that's correct. Yep, and then after the awning's installed, we'll have to submit a new survey
Right, right.
to verify existing conditions.
Okay. All right, so for the application of the Surf Lodge at 183 South Edgemere Street in Montauk, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-027-03-14, make a motion to close the public hearing and the public record.
I'll second it.
I concur.
I concur.
I concur. Thank you. Our next application is for Dune LLC at 180 Marine Boulevard, Amagansett. Suffolk Tax Map number 300-176-4-10. The size and location is 12,208 square feet at 180 Marine Boulevard, Lot 47 of Hampton Dudes, filed August 17th, 1966, map number 4694 in Amagansett. The description is to demolish and replace an existing 512 square foot swimming pool in place in kind, 2,515 square foot of decking and front entrance overhang in place, to construct a privacy wall under the pool area, roof deck with staircase and barbecue, outdoor shower, to replace and reconfigure windows, to relocate a chimney, and up to 600 square foot of temporary clearing for construction access on a property containing beach vegetation and within 150 feet of wetlands. Relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420 of the East Hampton Town Code. The zoning district is B residence, 0.2% annual chance flood hazard, and AE elevation 10, and secret class is type 2. Council, do we have proper affidavit of service and posting?
I have reviewed the affidavit of service and posting. Everything appears to be in order, and the board has jurisdiction over this application. I'm also going to state on the record that I'm going to be recusing myself from this discussion. I'm going downstairs to my office, and I'll watch it down there, so I will return when it's over, but Samantha can also text me if you're done and I'm not up here. And the board is aware that if there are any legal questions, we're going to have to leave the hearing open, and someone else from my office will be responding to those.
Okay,
Okay?
okay.
Thank you, everyone.
We can continue or wait.
You can continue.
We can continue, right?
Okay,
Go ahead.
thank you.
Go
I
ahead,
think
Jane.
these photos are going to go better. So this is another property in Beach Hampton, and it's also has 2 front yards as well. This is looking at the house from the Marine Boulevard side. That's the posting. Next. And that's the posting on Dune Lane. That's the same photo. Next slide. And this is just a view down Marine Boulevard, neighborhood shot. Next. And this is the view up north, towards the north on Dune Lane, also kind of just neighborhood. Oh, before you go, you can see in the right, towards the right edge, that's the house in question, and then the neighbor's house, that yellow, that's just the proximity of that neighbor house to the top of this house. Next slide. Again, another house with a lot of vegetation around it. Again, this is back on the Marine Boulevard side. You can see the sort of different levels and deck. You can see the deck in question there in the middle. We'll get closer to it. Next slide. Okay, this is a shot underneath. I've gone towards the house, and this is underneath the deck. This is the deck closer to the house, not the deck that has the swimming pool further up front. You can see the footings and the sand underneath there. Next slide. And then I've just turned around. This is, I believe, the structure underneath the deck. I guess the pool is supported by that structure. I'm sure we'll hear more about that. Next slide. This is looking, again, from Marine Boulevard towards the house. You'll see those double doors. That's kind of the lowest part of the house. Next slide. Okay, this creepy picture of me looking like a ghost. I'm staring into that space only to show that it does, I believe, take on water and things like that. I don't think it's really used, but it just wanted to show that. Next slide. Okay, this is the east side of the house. You can see it's very sandy. The vegetation is close and doesn't quite do it justice, but the land slopes up towards the north. There's like a little retaining wall there. Next slide. Okay, now I've gone onto the Dune Lane side of the house. I'm just standing in the sort of gravelly part of the road, looking at the west facade of the house. Next slide. You can see all the vegetation. And then as you get to the sort of northernmost part of the property, that's the set of stairs that rises up to where the front door of the house is on the north side. Next slide. This is at the top of those stairs. I'm actually looking south. And again, you can see the vegetation relative to the west side of the house, looking kind of towards the ocean. And there are a lot of invasives. I think these are all olives. There are a lot of olives on the property. Next slide. Okay, this is as I've gone up the stairs towards, there's a brick path to the brick steps to the front door. That's the yellow on the side. Next picture. And now I've gone over and back towards the west side. I'm going to be wrapping around. That's the, I guess, condenser and the that's the northeast corner of the house there. And I think the next slide is the last one. And now I'm looking down. What I had said before, I was looking up, past that retaining wall. Now I'm come around and I'm just looking down. Again, you can see how close the vegetation is. I think there's one more picture. That's it. I just wanted to take a snap of this. There's a very beautiful, mature, native holly tree that is on the east side of the house that I just wanted to call out as something that hopefully will be preserved. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have yep, how are you, Thomas? How are you?
Good evening. Thomas Crouch, attorney Crouch McWilliams Law Group, representing the applicant for Dune LLC. So yeah, this project, I have the builder here, Jack Luber. We took great care in preparing this project to consult the planning department before and after submission, and it doesn't increase the GFA, doesn't increase the coverage. All the improvements are on the side of the house that's away from the wetland. There's minimal ground disturbance. It's really a project designed to, enhance the house, but not affect the wetland. So we reviewed the technical analysis memo. We agree with the conditions proposed by the planning department. Happy to answer any questions. Jack is also here to speak on the application.
I think there's a little discrepancy, at least maybe I didn't catch it. On one hand, I think in the TAM, it says that the footings under the deck, they won't be new ones added, but they may be replaced as needed. But then I also saw under the pool, when you demolish it, there are going to be piles driven into the ground or not to support the pool. I still wasn't really totally clear on the protocol, how that's going to work.
You want to come up and discuss that?
And also just want to,
Piles,
Yeah, they do.
Drawing show piles.
right, but I just wanted to clarify, you're taking
I
all the
think they're gonna
decking
be
out, not
replaced.
just the decking around the pool, right? You're taking the entirety of the decking out? Okay.
Please announce yourself.
Yeah, my name's Jack Luber. I own Shell and Core Design and Build based in Amagansett, Long Island.
Okay, do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. What can I help you with? Oh, regarding the pilings. Yeah, so you can see they're called out, what's going to be driven into the ground. As regarding the decking, as per the application, we are replacing the decking in kind. There is no additional square footage being added to the decking. If you were at the property, you may have seen that there's quite a bit of erosion on some of that framing timber, which is just unethical and lack of integrity to build on top of. Understanding I build 80% of my homes between Amagansett and Montauk in the sand between the White Sands community and Amagansett. I'm very familiar with this topography, and I can tell you it's always very difficult building, as you know, in these communities. The pool itself is, if I can just speak to the pool so that maybe there's no redundancy here. As you know, there's a driveway located on Marine Boulevard that gives plenty of access in for heavy machinery, dumpsters, and/or any kind of construction machinery. Our intentions are to dismantle everything in the natural vegetation surrounding the swimming pool and the decking by hand. So until the swimming pool is ready for construction, there'll be no heavy machinery on site as needed. There'll be clear paths to this demolition, as you can see if you're at the property when you walk up the driveway on Marine and you look to your left under the housing and structural detail of the swimming pool. You'll see that there's plenty of access that doesn't disturb vegetation there. And what is disturbed, as you said, are some invasive olives that can be removed and will be, as well as whatever replanting schedule that Natural Resources is calling out. We're obviously going to abide and revegetate.
Thank you.
So I just want to understand, I'm looking at the survey, and you said the driveway is where?
There are actually two parking areas at this home. There's on Dune Lane, there is an alcove side egress where you go up the staircase to the front door, and then there's a significant driveway that the photograph you saw that was mentioned that there's possible water intake at that area where that concrete slab is off of Marine. That's where the driveway pulls in. And it's a typical driveway. It's 15 feet wide, 14 feet wide by at least 20 feet deep, 30 feet deep.
It's not seen it
Yeah,
on the
it's
survey.
in the right of way. I mean,
Survey?
the driveway is just on the dune
But we're talking
side.
Dune Lane. There's no driveway on Marine Boulevard.
There is.
There is. There's an existing driveway can I go to the board?
Yeah.
Sure.
There is a driveway right here. It says Stone Driveway, where I'm pointing.
Right.
Where I'm pointing.
I see it.
Okay, it's right here. So it's actually here. So it's right where you see 7 feet. It goes where the 29.6, it runs
Right.
parallel to that line and goes all the way to about halfway where the swimming pool is. And
Right,
that's it.
so, but you have the swimming pool existing is on basically a foundation.
Yes, it's sitting on
So
a half
the
foundation. now.
demolition is going to be a pretty invasive demolition process, taking that foundation out. So what I'm looking at is I guess it's to the west, you have contours showing 6 feet, 8 feet going up to the pool, which to me denotes dune land, right? A dune land feature. How are you going to protect that from being damaged?
Again, can I go back to the board?
Sure. Because this is going to be an invasive demolition process.
To a degree.
Yeah.
It's not going to be as invasive as it would be if we were if we were going in, believe it or not, with fresh, raw.
Right. I'm not concerned about that. I'm concerned about how the natural dune features are going to be preserved that are there.
We are not going to access anything in this area.
And
So
then
when you're saying
to this side of the swimming pool?
You were just mentioning to the west. So this is the west,
And the south.
south.
I was talking to the west of the driveway, but go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay, I didn't understand what you were discussing. So this is the driveway. If we're going west, we are not going to interrupt any of this access. We're going to come as far as we can up the existing driveway. We're going to hand demo all of this activity and the framing and the decking. That wall you see from the street is a knee wall that is a safety wall as acting as a pool fencing. So that will be removed. The burden of this retaining wall for the above ground swimming pool now will be hand removed. There will not be machinery in there taking that. That'll be done with sledgehammers and hand labor. Then the Bobcat, once it's ready, and only when it's ready, will come up the driveway, and it will not interrupt this area whatsoever. It's going to interrupt what's already been interrupted in the ground. So we're going to pass the area of the high dune and this vegetation here, where you see 6 feet, 7 feet.
Yeah, that's right.
8 feet. We're going to come right here. If you come up the driveway and you see the word slate, we're going to go just by the letter E at the word slate, and we're going to enter right there. And that's where we're going to do the most profound heavy machinery to come in and remove whatever debris is on the ground and to get ready for the new installation of the above ground pool. This will not be disturbed. We're passing that. And because we're doing demolition on all the framing timber on the east elevation by where the word slate is, right here, just if you take swimming pool and go directly across like such, we'll be able to go in there where the ground's already been disturbed, where there is no vegetation, and we'll have a right-of-way in there without having disrupt any of that ground.
And so the pile driver would come in the same area?
Exactly.
And be able to reach the far
Yes,
end?
sir. It's a small swimming pool, as you can see on the drawings. It's just outdated, and the owners would like to replace it.
So one of the things that the chair is alluding to here is that it's a limited access. We're going to insist on having some project limited fence if this project moves forward.
Yes.
You'd have a driveway. You'd have to remove the pool and install the pilings and pour the concrete caps and grade beams all from the east side west, from west side east is in terms of completion. So any pilings are done. So it would be helpful if we had a building protocol that said this is exactly how we're to do it, because, like, as you know, as a builder, you know that very often the best laid plans can run astray on these things. We'd want to be sure that if this moved forward, that we weren't going to see collateral damage to the west or the south of the project. Now, we can put a
Understood.
project limited fence, but the protocol should call out that the way in which the demolition is to take place and the way in which the new installation is to take place.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. I believe my architect, I might be incorrect, but I believe my architect called out a building protocol as per, if it should have been involved in this application and included. If
see
it
it.
wasn't, I'll
gonna
make sure
ask-
that the board has it.
So the thing about that is, even if a protocol exists in some form, we want to be careful, we want to be sure that we specify exactly how this is to be done. As a builder, you know that these things can get very complicated very
Yes.
quickly with big equipment. So that's always something we're concerned about. You're talking about 35 pilings, significant amount of work in a period of time.
Yes.
We understand the process. So that driveway, the access, the project limited fence, there'll have to be a protocol that allows you to fully respect that if we were to move forward.
Yes, sir.
Just attached to the technical analysis memo is the survey with the project limiting fence on it,
Right.
just so you can see, but
Yeah,
That will certainly be provided.
yeah.
I guess we should have a construction protocol.
Can I ask, the application makes mention of a privacy wall at the pool, so is that going in front of the deck and rising up? I'm not clear what the purpose of this so-called privacy wall is and where it's going. Say that in the, Tam?
I believe that if you're referring to the east elevation privacy wall that runs parallel with the swimming pool?
Is that what, I'm looking at the project description in the TAM, it just says to construct a privacy wall under the pool area.
Yeah, that would be.
Right, right.
That's kind of what an existing situation is there now. What it is now is you see the existing structural
Right.
beams of the deck being held up. We're simply just going to put horizontal mahogany
Oh, it's just-
screening on it. It's
just
transparent.
cosmetic, okay.
Yeah, it's just an aesthetic, non-structural detail.
Okay. I will have a question about the roof deck. Can we move to that? Can you bring the survey back up? Morgan, thank you. And can you zoom in on that pink part? On the top? So I didn't have a hard copy in my package, but part of it says proposed second story, and then part of it says proposed second story, or proposed roof deck. You see what and I was getting, it's just a roof deck.
It's just a roof deck.
So is that proposed second story? Because that wouldn't be noticed if, right, there's no second story notice, is there?
I'm sorry?
Yeah.
The survey is saying proposed second story, and I'm not sure.
I don't know why they would be proposed. There's an existing second story on the structure now that includes the primary
Right.
bedroom. All that's proposed in our drawings is to change the staircase to that location, but that's not exterior and doesn't increase anything.
It's just referencing.
The roof deck, right, there is no roof deck over that structure right now. That's what we're proposing, is to give access to that roof deck
Right,
and
and
to
maybe
make
it was
it
just an
useful.
error on the survey where it says, it probably is the existing second story and a proposed roof deck, but it says,
It says proposed, I understand
Right,
that.
that's
Yeah, no,
what
it's an
was-
existing second story with a proposed roof deck making
and-
use of that area.
and is the roof deck, is it set in from the facade of the house with that dotted line, or is
Yes.
it the width
Yes,
of?
you see the break marks on the
Okay.
drawing, that's
So
that's the footprint.
Set in a little
Yes,
bit
it
from
is.
the, okay, thank you.
It's hard for us to read this. I'm just going to make a comment that these plans seem very kind of rudimentary and not very well developed. So it's hard for us to, and I do this as a living, is to depict, what's going on. We notice a barbecue on the roof deck, but we don't know where it is. There's no denotation on the building plans as to what's going on. I'll just make that for a comment. I'm not sure if other board members are noticing
I
the
was
same.
confused.
I did it again.
page 12, it's on drawing number 12. There's a area of proposed built-in barbecue.
Where is it, Thomas?
12
Proposed roof floor plan,
plan? Oh, this.
drawing number 12.
All right, let me take a look at it. I see. My bad.
I won't tell the architect, don't worry.
I was looking at, there's a couple of sets of drawing in the file there, so I was, all right, okay, thank you. That's a clearer picture.
On the barbecue, obviously, there's a very large deck in the middle of the U shape of the house, right? But you want to put a barbecue on the roof.
Correct.
I'm just curious.
Beautiful view, great area, beautiful to entertain. That's the owners.
Okay? I mean,
That's where they'd like to be.
Any other questions?
No.
I just want to go back to the driveway. I'm sorry. The driveway that exists now on the marine side, I mean, it's gravelly, it's almost not,
Typical
right, but are you going to redo that driveway?
in
In kind, with gravel,
In kind.
not stone? Okay.
In kind.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, this is,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, maybe we'll hear from the planning department.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
How are you, Morgan?
Hi, good evening, Morgan Slater for the Planning Department.
Morgan, do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
So this is an undersized lot on the corner of Dune Lane and Marine Boulevard with an approximately 3,000 square foot residence, which was constructed prior to modern zoning in the early 1970s. Nearly the entire residence is within 150 feet of a wetland located on the neighboring property, which is part of a fragmented wetland system found throughout Beach Hampton. The swimming pool and deck received an administrative NRSP in 1996 and are proposed to be demolished, and a new pool of the same dimensions is to be constructed in the same location. The pool is partially below grade and is supported by pilings with concrete grade beams. No additional pilings are proposed, and the existing ones will be replaced as needed. Since there is no proposed increase in the footprint of the pool area, there are no long-term environmental impacts expected that are not already associated with the existing structures. The planning department spoke with the applicant about the construction protocol, and we recommended they include temporary clearing for construction access in the application, since the property contains a combination of successional duneland species and invasives which are particularly dense around the pool area, and they may impede access. The requested 600 square feet is reasonable for a project of the scope, and any areas that are cleared should be revegetated with native duneland species before a CO is issued. And it's a big concern, the disturbance to the existing clearing limits. So you can't really tell on the screen because it's pretty fine, but this is the marked out proposed project limiting fence that the planning department drew. It kind of is giving just a little under, I think, a 10-foot buffer for access to the pool deck area for demo. If the board would like to modify something like this, that's something that we would easily be able to work on. Also, I don't know if the board would want to consider having the project limiting fence even staked out before it's installed by a surveyor.
It should be.
Just to make sure that there's, that 600 square foot clearing allowance is not exceeded and that there's really nothing going on beyond the project limiting fence. I didn't put that in the conditions of the TAM, but recommending it now. So Beach Hampton's residential density and high water table are both contributing factors to chronic flooding in the area, and the wetland within jurisdiction helps mitigate this by attenuating floodwaters. This wetland also provides a valuable habitat for native wildlife and valuable plant species, and its sensitivity to development should not be underestimated. The proposed improvements should not negatively impact the wetland any more than what is already on the property. Since this parcel has pre-existing non-conforming building coverage, the planning department recommends the residence is furnished with gutters and leaders to direct stormwater from the roof into dry wells, which can help reduce runoff. The application proposes a small decrease in building coverage because a roof overhang is being eliminated. The residence is also pre-existing non-conforming to GFA, and it should be noted that any additional roof structures or an increase in GFA would require a variance. The other proposed improvements are minor in nature since there is no increase in building coverage, total lot coverage, gross floor area, or clearing. So the planning department does not anticipate any long-term environmental impacts that are not already associated with the existing conditions of the property. I can answer any questions the board may have about the application. Other than that.
Do you have any questions for
Yeah,
Morgan?
so the sanitary system that exists is, I think, called a traditional sanitary, right? So,
Conventional, yeah.
and this is a 5-bedroom house or a 6-bedroom, right? So there's no upgrade to a,
It's correct. It's not required because they are not adding any additional gross floor
right,
area or bedrooms.
not 50%. So I just wanted to get the impression of doing a project of this financial magnitude, but not upgrading a sanitary system.
I think, an upgraded IA is always an improvement to the environmental conditions of the property. I think the question is, how much of a nexus is there between the scope of the work and requiring a sanitary upgrade? A building permit was issued in the summertime for interior renovations. I don't think that work has been initiated yet because I think they're waiting for, the zoning board's, decision on this application, because I think actually the chimney relocation has a lot to do with that, with the interior renovations. But again, it's kind of a matter of how much of a nexus is there. We're not opposed to a sanitary upgrade.
Thank you. Any other questions?
No.
I do not have any.
Oh, the dewatering. Yeah, can you just address in the town?
Yeah, I mean, I'm
Talk
not a
about
structural
the,
engineer, but
Yeah.
just something to consider just because of the high water table. I mean, there are pilings. If dewatering is needed, it definitely shouldn't, any water should not be, directed into the street, and also should not into really any of the undisturbed areas of the property. So I don't know of a method, I can't recommend a method to be used, but whatever method is used should avoid as much disturbance as possible.
For when pilings are driven, they must meet a capacity of resistance of the soil to be able to hold up, and that is how the engineer comes up with them. So very often they're in groundwater and have to go driven to that resistance level. So
it sounds like there may not actually be excavation needed for the pilings. If there is excavation.
there is no excavation required.
Yes,
further
there's no excavation needed. So dewatering shouldn't be needed. It's just something to note because of the high water table.
Thank you. Any other questions?
No.
Thank you, Morgan. I'm going to ask if there are anybody here for public comment. And before we do, there's one public comment letter that was written that was with disparaging remarks against Ms. Slater. I'm going to say on the record that I find that to be inappropriate, and I'm going to ask that to be restrained moving forward. So with that, if you have anybody want to approach publicly, Ms. Clapin.
Rona Klopman, 184 Marine Boulevard.
Do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole
I
truth, and
do.
nothing but the
I
truth?
do. I've lived at 184 Marine Boulevard for 37 years, and I think that house was probably built before my house. And frankly, every time it's sold, I think this is the third owner of the house. I think that I really expected somebody to buy it and tear it down. When I read this, what they want to do to this house, I was really shocked that they want to take down walls, and they want to do an outdoor shower, they want to reconfigure windows, they want to move a chimney, they want clearing for construction, and it's all within 150 feet of wetlands. So I went into the research mode and reading FEMA. FEMA has a stipulation, and I have it in my letter to the board, that if the cost of all these materials, and as you said, Chairman Deline, it's a very rudimentary design that they have showed here, that the cost of moving walls, putting windows in, moving a chimney, FEMA has a 50% rule. The cost of all of these materials, and I have a list to present to the board, and pictures, materials, labor, built-in appliances, overhead, profit, repairs made to the parts of the house that they're going to rebuild are all substantially figured by FEMA, that if it's 50% of what it would cost to replace the house, that they have to go through substantial improvements, that they have to have a detailed cost estimate for for the whole project, not including the pool. It doesn't include the land, it doesn't include the pool. So I'm saying with all of this major, the house value, of rebuilding a new house, they're practically doing it and asking you to approve all of these changes in the house, which are major. I mean, it's almost like taking down the house and rebuilding it. And yet, they're asking it in parts and parcels of doing this in pieces. And I'm just saying, maybe the board has to look at it with the amount of cost of doing all these little changes. It's almost, something that you should really look into. And may I approach the board? I have pictures because every time it rains, there's substantial water on the street. And I'd like to just give this to you.
Mind you, have 3 minutes, so just gotta.
There's also a list here of all the costs, the things that you have to look at to do an evaluation of this project and the cost. And the list contains, I don't have to read it, I just gave it to the board. It's items to be included in the FEMA 50% rule and items which are excluded and an estimate of the market value. So thank you very much, and I really would like you to evaluate this extensive project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Good evening. My name is Nicolas Dussard. We live in 10 Dune Lane, the yellow house that you guys mentioned. It's just nearby.
You swear firm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the
I
truth?
swear.
Right.
So first, I want to welcome this new neighbor to our community. We love this place, this neighborhood. We've been here for since 2015, and we had a very good relationship with everybody there. Yet, we have some concerns against the moving the chimney. The chimney has been, from what we understood from these vague plans, it's been hard for us to understand what's going to happen. Seems to be moved like 30% closer to our home from where it was. The main area is just behind this house. We live on it's an upside down house. So our living space is basically, well, if they do this terrace roof deck and they go and enjoy the view, as they say, the main view they will enjoy is us because we are very, very close. We can hear the conversation, the intimate conversation for us from the living space would be jeopardized a little bit. But more important, our kids have allergy, respiratory problems. We moved here also to have clean air, and we're very worried that this chimney moves closer to us in a different location, might just spend some fumes to our place where we live. This barbecue, same thing. It comes from the wind exactly in the axe, very, very close, just to the level of our living space. So for the health of our kids, for the breathing space around us, this chimney, this barbecue things is a concern. The second point, that's the main concern, is the privacy. Again, it's very, very, very close. I'm our neighbors before. Sometimes they were going on the roof to look at the view. And that was not a concern because there was really not on all the time, like there's a barbecue here. So it's a different thing. And we checked in our neighborhood, we're all pretty packed, but it seemed that we all have found a way to all the houses, they sort of like organize the space in such a way that everybody looking at the sea, and we coordinate this very well. All the other houses can have the same. This is the first instance where that would dramatically change. They would be just looking at us all the time, and they would be really in a way, not to mention, obviously, they would block the view in a significant way by raising bars on the roof and adding this barbecue and moving this larger chimney in a different location, which is very close to us. So again, the privacy seems to be really different from everything else that's been organized around this neighborhood that we really love. And obviously for us, we seem really punished by this plan. So those are really two important points for us. But there are other ones as well, which were mentioned. We looked at the plan and didn't really understand everything on it. Seems very vague, and we're worried. We're worried because we're on these dunes that already concerns us. Sometimes the flooding, we can see the sand level on the sand on the property moves quite a lot. And in this plan, we were worried that there was no foundation for the new chimney that seems to be larger, so we don't know what the impact would be. It seemed to me that to reach this roof deck, there would be a stairs, which I imagine foundation as well. We're not really sure what the impact would be. On that, again, it's hard for me to judge, but I would like to be sure that there's a very specific process to minimize the chances of negative environmental impact for us and for the property and for the neighborhood, generally speaking. And there's another thing, I think, regarding the permits. We have our designers here with something we're looking at this 50% rule in mind, and we just felt from the outside that we create a precedent where you could really change a lot of things in houses around here without filing the right permit. So we just want to make sure as well that this was taken up accordingly for all fairness for everybody in the future, again, to be able to change make the change to enjoy the house the best for all the community here.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Anybody else? Come on up.
Hi, I'm Gérard Zissina. I'm an architect in France and friend with the neighbors.
Can you just turn the mic up
sorry.
a little bit?
Hi, my name is Gérard Zissina. I'm an architect, licensed architect in France, but I live here for 20 years. And the neighbors have been asking me to take a look at the drawings to get a better understanding of what was there. And
Do you swear, raise your right hand, do you
I
swear
do.
firm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. And what I noticed mainly is that this permit is to the back of another permit that basically encompass all the work that is going to be done inside the house, and everything that could not be approved at the building department is basically in this permit to be added on. So the exterior work, the new windows, the new roof on one side, the new roof deck on the other side, the new staircase, the new fireplace and chimney are all elements that are, it's basically, I feel there's one, instead of doing one permit, because it was very extensive work, there was one first permit that was approved for the interior, and this is just capturing what is left over. So are we, if you look at both together, it's more of a substantial renovation of the house. So it tried to capture, the aspect of a grandfathered building, but at the same time trying to split it up into two ways to only include in this permit the aspect, a part of the scope. So in terms of cost of construction, it's kind of obvious that we're above the 50% of the cost of the house. So if this entire project was under one permit, then it would not really be approvable because half of the house is within 100 feet of wetlands. And, because of the health concern for the kids of the neighbor and and the fact that it's not really a renovation. When you demolish a fireplace and build it into a new place and you do new foundation, when you take down a pool, I don't know what is the current depth of the pool, but the new pool is 8 foot deep. There's going to be 35 piles that are going to be done underneath. So there's going to be a lot of changes in the soil from, a structural standpoint, the stability of the soil, but also the flow of water. It's kind of puzzle pieces to kind of focus the attention of different departments on something that is a bigger project. And I think it needs to be looked back as a whole, right? So,
Okay.
I think that's basically it. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Come on up.
Hello, my name is Eureka Nakazono.
You swear firm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And where are you from?
I'm actually Japanese Swedish, but I lived in New York for 24 years, and we bought the house, it's my husband, about 10 years ago.
Okay.
And so when we had 2 children and they had respiratory problems and allergies, we thought we should get a house out in nature for them. And we drove actually all the way from the city, that's really late, so really sorry about that. It's a lot of traffic, took us 3.5 hours. But we're here to just say that, of course, we want our neighbors to have the best of their house as much as I would like to have the best of my house. And this whole project looks pretty big to me, but I don't understand all the numbers and everything. But I'm here to say that there are two things, and one thing is the health for my children, and I am concerned for, the barbecue and the chimney moving, and it's right in front of us. I mean, it's leveled here. We can talk. I know Baker and Nadine, who owned the house before, they would invite us over. I know this house, I know his structure. It's a beautiful house, like you said. There's a huge terrace with a pool. They don't really need to be up there. And I don't think they need to have the chimney there either, but anyway. And then the second part is, sorry, I'm a little nervous. I've never done this before, so sorry. And the second part is our privacy. It feels like a violation of our privacy. We live in this house as much as we can on vacations and weekends, and we always gather as a family upstairs. That's where the kitchen is, the living room, and our terrace. So this is really, we don't hang out in the bedrooms. I don't think a lot of people do that. So having them being in our faces, and it feels like somebody's basically trespassing and violating us. And as a family, it feels, for my children and for us, it really feels scary. And so I hope that, there can be something done. There's so many other options. They have a beautiful house. I love that house. It's really a beautiful house. So I just feel like, can we please try to be good neighbors and good people and keep our amazing neighborhood that I love, so we can all enjoy it and have our privacies. Like, until now, we never had a problem, because Baker and Nadine were on that side, and we were on our side in the back. So the other neighbors behind us, we would almost never be around there, because they're very close to there, and I know they want their privacy too. So we try to just optimize for all of us together. So, I've never met the neighbor. He bought it a year and a half ago. I never even saw him or her. And which is also a bit sad, because normally when people buy a house, they kind of say hello to the neighbors. And we tried to reach out to them, but nothing. So anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Matt, is there anybody on the phones?
You have 0 callers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thomas, would you come up? So, Thomas, I also am concerned about the FEMA requirement, the 50%. I do understand that the plans are somewhat segmenting the work in terms of interior, exterior. The FEMA is a cumulative effect on the overall. It's not this board's responsibility to determine whether it's a FEMA requirement. That would be the requirement of the building department. But in this case, because of the scope of the work, and board members, I don't know if you'll agree with me or not, I'm wondering if we should have a letter of determination from the building inspector prior to us making a determination on this case, of whether or not this application does surpass or meet FEMA.
Yeah, I did submit a letter that included a budget and an appraisal, and we can go over that if you want, but that budget was under the 50% marker. So,
but I'm wondering if it's not for us to determine that, right? It's not the responsibility of this board. It would be the building inspector. So I'm wondering if we should have the building inspector review that, and then give us a letter of yes or no. It appears to be a large project, right? We don't know whether it's going to cross that threshold or not. I know we have a cost or not.
Right. The reason why the interior work is not in the zoning board's jurisdiction, so it's the building department's jurisdiction to, evaluate that building permit.
That's correct.
And the exterior work is, that's why we're here. So, I'm not trying to pull anything over. It's just.
So maybe we can discuss this. I would say there's maybe 2 ways we can do it. We can ask for a determination from the building inspector ahead of time, or we can stress it in our determination if we do approve it, that there be a close examination of this as a condition of a building permit.
Yeah, I think enough concern has been raised, by the public, that I would think that I'm agreeing with the chair that I'd like to see more clarification on this.
I agree with the chair.
I
I agree as well.
But this is exclusive of the interior work? I mean, if it's
Well, the only
segmentation,
thing in
it's
No, it has to be
organization is
included.
the
reviewed as one.
Well, it's a cumulative. It would be an cumulative effect on it.
Is the number that you put in the memo with the cost, I think it was $708,768. Did that include the work that's going to happen in the interior that's been permitted under a separate permit, or have you kept that out of it?
That's my understanding. Jack, you got the budget. Do you want to speak to that?
Let me get my glasses, excuse me.
Can't find them because you don't have your glasses.
Before I address this, if I could just speak to the absolute panic of the scale of this job, okay? If I were to have gone into any of your homes and you purchased a home on a property and you were to ask me, we live in a sensitive neighborhood. Generally, anything you do in the ground awakens the planning department or natural resources, as it should. I would tell them anything you think that you'd like to do now, and people's lives change, remember, and everyone's different in their household when they purchase a home. So the schedule of construction changes as per what's going on under the roof of the people that live in their home now, meaning everyone's life is different, and their choice to decide when they build a home and how they build a home is personal and theirs, not mine. I just react to people's decisions. The reason I say that is because the first application that went in was to do work that the owners wanted to do. They were excited to live in their home. They thought they could make minor adjustments to do things that would make them happy in their dream house, in their neighborhood they wanted to live in, that they had rented in for quite a long time. So the chimney and the glass, we're talking about replacing windows. We're not replacing the shape of this home. We're replacing most of these windows in kind. So it's not like we're redesigning the neighborhood's corner that's laid dormant for 3 purchasers, and the reason they haven't addressed it is because it takes 2 years to get through the natural resource and planning department to get the main thing they all wanted out of this home, which was a new swimming pool. The owners asked me to put the application in for construction on the interior renovations prior because they knew this would be held up in this responsible process. You know, it's not a mystery. It takes a long time, and it should. But this is the process. So they applied first for the interior renovations, knowing that the swimming pool would hold them up in case they could move into the house. Hence, their personal lives took over. They do not live in this country. They've had several health issues, and these are all very private and personal matters which delinquent and delayed the construction of this home.
Excuse me, we're not here to...
No, I'm just setting the stage for why the construction has, if I may, it sounds like wrongdoing was done here. So I'm just defending my client. Okay, I'll stop then.
The question before you...
I have a budget in front of me to address the FEMA allocation. And again, this big panic of a massive construction, the biggest phase of this job is the swimming pool, as most jobs are in a renovation. And if you check it, if you check into local contractors out here, the number we have here is, it's clear as day. This is a common number. The chimney, a common number. The window schedule, a common number, or it can be a non-common number. It can go escalating depending on the vendor you choose. These folks have chose very simplistic building materials. They are doing a very simplistic renovation except for the swimming pool and the chimney. And the chimney is not dramatically complicated. It's just a relocation because the clients can't stand where the fireplace is in the house. This is an outdated home that they're not looking to recreate. They're just doing what they could do to make the house a livable, clean situation without making it some abrasive excuse to make the community go crazy, and they're asking to use the roof deck for access. So as far as the budget and FEMA goes, we are happy to have the building department address this. I've worked with the building department for 15 years out here. Some of you on the board know me. I've been in front of this board. I don't claim my word is bond. I claim that my calculator doesn't lie. And when I add the numbers from my subcontractors, I end up at this. And I left myself a $125,000 cushion in case some of these line items would address and go up. which still keeps me under the 900 and X amount of dollars that FEMA requires to address all of these issues that the neighbors who have the right to be concerned about this have addressed. So I welcome the building department to submit a letter to let Joe and Dawn and them do their job to address what I've handed into them on building applications for over 2 decades now, whether I was working for a construction company or owned my own construction company for 15 years. So I am here to answer any question. I always have been. I pass my C of Os. I never go past my limits, and I offer the truth. So I welcome that.
Thank you.
May I asked a question and you came up to, I believe, answer it, which not accusing or anything. I just asked, is the cost related to the internal?
It is. It's both applications that were submitted is to cover everything on this cost sheet. And it was broken up. The reason you see it this way is because we priced out the initial application, and then we had to wait to see what it would cost as many contractors came back to us to assess the cost of the swimming pool. We are now there.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
All right, Thomas.
Want to address the other comments besides about the FEMA regulations. I just want to remind everyone that this is an NRSP only application. There are no variances involved. This project meets, there's no increase in pyramid, no setbacks required. It's a U-shaped house. If you were to move the chimney and barbecue and other items to the other side of the house, it would require variances. So this is the least impactful project we, could come up with that address some issues with the house. So thank you.
What's our pleasure on this one?
Well, I think a letter from the building inspector, which Mr. Gruber has already said he's... Gruber has already said he's in favor of, before we go further, to see that, leave the record open to get a letter to see that it does meet the FEMA regs.
Okay.
Before we proceed. That's
How much time
my take.
you think we would need?
1 week.
That's pretty good.
Building inspector?
I get you. Let's,
Thomas has a comment.
Since it's got to come from the building department, maybe 2 weeks.
2 weeks, let's go 2 weeks.
Right.
Thank you.
And do we need
Who's
any?
getting the letter? Thomas is getting the letter.
Yeah, it would be
Yeah,
submitted.
it would be
Yes, that's
submitted
right. He
by
would get the
Mr.
letter and then
Yeah.
we'd submit it. Thank you.
Are there any other, we're leaving the record open for 2 weeks. Are there any other, that's the only issue?
That would be the only issue
yeah.
we're looking for.
Okay, all right.
Thank
you. Thank you.
Nothing with construction.
Okay, you want to make a
Yeah,
motion?
did we
had
ask
with the
for a
construction
construction protocol, the one we had, or did you want something in addition to that? It wasn't clear what you were saying.
We talked about.
Yeah, we did talk about a construction protocol on that pool.
Yeah.
So if that 2 weeks, I'm sure construction protocol can be submitted with that too. So we're 2 things,
Okay.
right?
Yes, that's,
Just for the construction protocol, just for the swimming pool?
Yeah, or construction-related debris too. So we want to make sure the dune habitat is preserved.
I mean, you're relocating the
So-
chimney, so
Yeah.
Okay.
I think,
I think it's an appropriate ask.
yeah.
You can hear it.
You already relocated.
The construction protocol
project,
just
yeah.
letting us know how the materials will be handled in and out of the site.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Right.
Okay.
27?
Okay, we ready? Okay, so in the matter of
Hold on.
Sorry.
Anyone online, did you check?
No, we did.
We did, yeah.
Thank you, sorry.
Okay. So in the matter of Ford Dune LLC, 180 Marine Boulevard, the tax map number 300-176-04-10, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing, but leave the record open until the 27th of February.
I'll
Second
say,
that.
okay. I'll concur.
I concur.
I concur. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We now go into our work session part of the evening. And we have a couple of post-hearing decisions to make. One is Michael and Christine Tripp at 65 Wood Drive in Montauk, Suffolk, tax map number 300-68-9-6. The size and location is 6,140 square feet at 65 Wood Drive. Lots 1541 and 1542 in Hither Hills section. Map 3 filed August 22nd, 1940 as map number 1318 in Montauk. The description is to construct a 172 square foot deck extension within front yard setbacks. Relief sought is a variance of 9.5 feet pursuant to 255-1110 of the East Hampton Town Code to construct a 170 square foot deck extension 10 foot 5 from the front yard lot line. The zoning district is B residence, zone X flood zone, and the secret class is type 2. And this was in, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Board will remember the Tripp hearing was held on December 12th, 2023. The survey we were working from was from March 20th, 2023. The applicant was represented by Rick Whalen, and I think it's important in reference to this application to consider initially the Montauk Beach Development Corporation's Hither Hills section map 3 dated August 22nd, 1940, and what was then referred to as the Mirror Development. It was handed out the night of the hearing by Rick Whalen, and it demonstrated that in the original layout of this subdivision, the roads were by and large planned to be in a very curved manner, easing corners, cutting off what became basically 90-degree angles into big sweeping curves. That has a direct effect on this particular application. The setback variance requested here relates to the way in which the roads and property lines were established at that time. Proposed curving driveways and corresponding property lines cut closer to many houses in this section of development, and affect this applicant's property most directly. There's approximately 35 feet from the corner of Wood Drive and Harding Road as it now exists to the drawn property line of 65 Wood Drive, the applicant's property. While the request to increase the deck to within 10.5 feet from the front lot line in most cases would be significant. In this case, there's a large vegetated buffer between the proposed deck extension and Wood Drive. That piece of property does not belong to the Woods and therefore is not under their control. It is, however, vegetated because the paved area, as I said, exists about 35 feet beyond where their property line is. The applicants here are year-round residents looking to enlarge an existing deck by 172 square feet on a 6,140 square foot lot with additional constraint that the house sits 21.5 feet from the property line at the area in question. This property is not within jurisdiction of areas protected by town code, and so to quote the TAM, so there are not any substantial impacts expected from the proposed environmental impacts expected from the proposed deck. We listened to the presentation, we saw the documentation, and we also suggested, or was suggested, that perhaps an easement could be placed over the corner to keep with the existing vegetation, which now protects the roadway from the proposed deck extension. But as it was pointed out at the time by Rick Whalen, they were not against that. They were happy to see the vegetation remain, but that was actually town property and not theirs. So any easement would have to be enforced by the town and not by them. So they're not in a position to offer an easement on land that they don't own. I thought that this was a reasonable request under strange and different circumstances for us in some cases. And seeing the map, I think, was an eye-opener to us to understand that in 1940, they had a very fanciful map drawn that actually never came into fruition in the field. So, just a minute, I've lost where I put my 255 here. So then, in responding to variance standard 255-8-50 of the town code and asking Whether or not the grant of the variance will cause an undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood or will create a detriment to nearby properties, I say no. Whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance, I also say no. And whether or not the difficulty causing the applicant to request an area variance was self-created, which consideration shall be relevant to the determination of the board but shall not necessarily preclude the grant of the variance, I think that it's only self-created in the request. I think that the original map and the condition of the property are ones that this current owner has had to live with. So therefore, I didn't find this to be an egregious ask. I didn't think there were very many complications, and I thought, given the history of the property, I am willing to approve this application at this time.
Thank you. Denise?
I agree with Member Johann. The applicant is proposing a modest expansion to its deck to allow it to serve as a viable entryway to the home and to allow it to function as a typical deck area. The deck acts as the sole entryway for access to the home and as the only entry point for deliveries to be made in the home. The issue of safety and practical use have forced the applicant to seek the expansion of the deck that they're now seeking. I think the relief sought, the proposed deck structure will not have an adverse physical impact on the neighborhood, and the deck will be barely visible from the street. At its full expanded size of 347 square feet, the size of the deck will conform with other decks that exist in the area. The existing vegetation that acts as screening to the residents, however, should be maintained as mitigation through a declaration of covenants and restrictions. I believe this application is in compliance, as stated already, with 255-850 and 255-1110 of the East Hampton Town Code, and I'm approving the application.
Thank you. Mr. Terry?
Okay, well, I agree with my fellow board members. And two, if you look at the survey, the deck was small, it was cornered off here on, now they want to square that off. They have the only entranceway into the house and around the property is through the existing deck as it is. And they did say how tight that space is. There's not even room for more than a couple of chairs out there. They've had this property for a long time. They have kept it basically the way it is. There is not much outdoor space at all. And, it's a 10.5-foot variance for it to square off this deck. And I think, considering the vegetation from the roadway, it's 30 to 35 feet to the property line from the roadway. And the applicants are willing to keep some vegetation going in the roadway, which technically is not theirs. I too feel that the benefit, the grant to them was not going to create any undesirable change in the neighborhood. It's not, it can't really be achieved any other way. This is where their deck is. It's the way in and out of the house, and they don't have a whole lot of other methods of that. And I too am going to approve this application.
Thank you. Now, Member Maring, you weren't part of the zoning board at this time, so I'm sure that would be an abstention.
Yeah.
I agree with my board members. When you look at applications, what it came down to me too with this one is the uniqueness of the property. The uniqueness has to do with the layout of the subdivision as Mr. Johann does. And I think this too does meet the along with the safety aspects, does meet the variance standards. Thank you. So next we have Michelle Cohn at 89 Marine Boulevard, Amagansett, Suffolk, tax map number 300-176-8-5.3. The size and location is 36,529 square feet at 89 Marine Boulevard, Beach Hampton, Suffolk, Section 1, Block 3, part of Lot 8 and lots 19 through 14, including map number 1203 in Amagansett. The description is to demolish the existing residence and associated structures and to construct a new 2,942 square foot, one-story residence with 690 square feet of attached garage 1,250 square feet of first floor decking, 1,772 square feet of roof decking, a 300 square foot swimming pool, 393 square foot pool patio, pool equipment, pool fencing, walkways, generator, and utilities with platform, driveway, and new sanitary system, and associated structures on a parcel of land with dunes, dune land, beaches, tidal wetlands, and beach vegetation. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420 of the East Hampton Town, and 3 variances are required for this application. Variances of 17 feet, 20 feet, and 36 feet are required from 255-440 of the Town Code to construct the proposed residence. 83 feet decking, 80 feet, and fencing 64 feet from the dune crest respectively, where 100-foot setbacks are required, and any other relief necessary. The zoning district is B residence, BE velocity flood zone, and the secret class is type 2.
Also mine. Excuse me. The board will remember that the Cohen hearing was held also on December 12th, 2023. The survey that we were working from was from January 23rd, 2023. The applicant was represented by Britton Bistrian. Building plans were submitted by Catherine McCoy Architect, also dated January 23, 2023, and were received by us here at the board on February 7th, 2023. This property has been before the board in 1981, 1984, 2007, and 2009 for changes to the existing structure. This parcel is part of the 1936 Beach Hampton subdivision, and the original residence was constructed in 1957. Since 1984, there have been a series of building permits and ZBA decisions that have allowed the structure to increase in size incrementally, growing to its current size. The existing structure is 3,709 square feet with 2,200 square feet of porches and decking, with the proposed new structure planned to be 2,942 square feet and with a 996 square foot garage, 3,022 square foot of decking, that includes both the first floor and the roof decking. This proposal plans to relocate the new structure from the existing 46 feet from dune crest to 85 feet from dune crest. The proposal will allow the new structure to be FEMA compliant, or reducing it from an existing 2-story structure to a nominal 1-story structure. Although with the first floor elevation being raised to FEMA compliance, the new structure will appear to be a 2-story structure from the road. The TAM contained a chart comparing this proposal to other redevelopments on Marine Boulevard. The Otis CMS project at 189 Marine Boulevard and the Irving Eli LLC projects were cited for comparison. The total lot coverage for Cohen, the total lot area, for Cohen is 21,545 square feet and is significantly less than that of Otis at 39,133 or Eli at 39,54, which figured into the architectural planning and the configuration of the proposed Cohen redevelopment. The current proposal will reduce the GFA by 767 square feet from 3,709 square foot residence to the newly proposed 2,942 foot square residence. Additionally, it is proposed in this application that the clearing will be reduced from 12,329 square feet to 11,091 square feet, a difference of 336 square feet. Moving the proposed structural landward will increase the setback from dune crest from 46 to 83 feet, an additional 37 feet, and it will help to eliminate an existing height nonconformity. The proposed structure will require no height or pyramid variances, even though the house will be located close to the 20-foot front yard setback. The applicant is willing to accept the TAM's proposed mitigations, including a 50-foot easement from the dune crest to the seaward side of the structure and the removal of an existing unpermitted section of decking at the ocean front. It was agreed that if an approval is granted, would be contingent on the submission of an acceptable revegetation plan and a building protocol that specifically called out measures to protect the site during construction, particularly seaward of the proposed new structure. In short, the planned development proposes to improve setbacks, eliminate a nonconformity, decrease the size of the house, and eliminate a portion of the seaward lawn area while reestablishing part of the now disturbed viewscape. This is a large project. We just went over a very small project, a little addition to a deck. Here we see an existing house of significance, almost 3,000 feet, that's existed for a while, been added onto, that's now to be demolished, and a complete relocation. Along the lines, the planning board here, the planning department, has encouraged the movement of houses landward, away from the sea, which this also is a proposal that obviously will help in that area. I think we're always given pause for any work being done there. I think we had photos that night and a discussion of the sensitivity of the lot, of the sensitivity of the land that's all seaward of the proposed project. There were some questions of how the dune might be reconfigured and reconstructed in areas that were previously disturbed, the elimination of some lawn area that obviously must have been cut into a portion of the dunescape. All of those were positive. Nonetheless, it's a large project with an impact on the neighborhood. I looked at the standards, and in the standards on 255-8-50 of the town code, whether or not the grant of the variance will cause an undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood or create a detriment to nearby properties. I think we're in the midst of a slight transition going on, not a slight, but a transition going on Marine Boulevard, where houses that do move forward away from the sea in a way that we try to encourage have a different effect on the neighborhood than they might have before. I think overall we have to ask ourselves on the board whether the move landward is significant enough to counteract the fact that this house will be more visible from the road. Whether or not the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variances, I think that what they've done here is look for alternatives to how to build a house that eliminated some of the we had a height variance that before that we will not have, and we've increased the distance from all the other setbacks that were a problem. Whether the requested area variance is substantial, I think it's substantial, but less than what existed, and it's moved it in a positive direction. Whether the grant of the variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or the area affected by the town, and whether the difficulty caused by the applicant to request an area variance was self-created, which is considered to be relevant to the determination of the board, but shall not necessarily preclude the grant of the variance. I think this represents an improvement, and in that sense, this is a positive in both those areas. Then under NRSP standards 255-5-51 of the town code, D, preservation of all natural resources, all structures and uses other than coastal structures shall be located on upland and shall be located so that no natural resources feature a system designated in 255-412 will be diminished in size, polluted or degraded, lost or placed in peril thereof in order to establish each structural use. I think that by moving it landward, we have the opportunity to improve both the dune layer, the dunescape there, and the general environmental conditions. Under D1, alternative reasonable use of the property determined not exist, I think that they've found an alternative reasonable use for a new construction here by decreasing the size of the structure and also decreasing the amount of total clearing on the lot. Alternative designs with smaller structures fits into that same reasoning. It is smaller now than what exists. And then under 255-5-40 of the town code, compatibility, the site of the proposed use is a suitable one for the location of such a use in the town, and if sited at that location, the proposed use will in fact be compatible with its surroundings, with the character of the neighborhood, the community in general, particularly with regard to visibility, scale, and overall appearance. I think that back to what my other comment, I think there is the notion, there'll be the reaction that moving it further to the road does make it more visible to the community, but I think the overall net impact on the environment is improved by this move. And lastly, under under K, environmental protection, the natural characteristics of the site are such that the proposed use may be introduced there without undue disturbance or disruption of important natural features, systems, or processes, and without significant negative impact to groundwater and surface waters on and off the site. I think there is an improvement. I mentioned in the first part of the comments that there was an active discussion that all work to the south of the structure would be carefully regulated, and that we would see that, that all building and construction would take place from Marine Boulevard. Heavy equipment would not be on the south side of the property, and we asked for that to be included in the building protocol. So therefore, I found this to be initially, this is a very large structure coming down. What's the point of it? I think that when we're done considering the fact that the land movement, the movement of the house landward, in this case, the decreasing the size of the structure, other improvements, and the possibility to help reestablish a portion of the existing dune structure were all positives. And therefore, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to approve this application at this time.
Thank you. Denise?
Thank you. The application is proposing a more conforming residence farther landward. There's a reduction in GFA by 767 square feet. They're increasing the first floor elevation to meet FEMA. The residence will now be 83 feet from the dune crest versus what exists now, which is 46 feet. The residence is changing from a two-story to a one-story, becoming a FEMA-compliant residence with a garage, a ground floor garage. The new residence will nearly double the existing setback. The property should be further revegetated, however. The planning department recommends that the scenic easement proposed be extended over the dune and also include a 50-foot buffer to the dune crest, and I agree with that. The applicant's agent did agree to a revegetation plan submittal prior to the issuance of a building permit at the public hearing, and I think that should be a condition of approval. The easements and buffers will protect the dune in perpetuity. Another condition of approval that was spoken about at the public hearing, a construction protocol, including demolition, was also agreed to by the agent and should be a condition of approval. I also think that these construction protocols, once our resolution has been filed with the town clerk, I think that the building department, along with the resolution, should have a copy of that construction protocol.
Given to the, as
Yeah.
part of the building permit.
Yes.
Yeah, I fully agree
I
with that,
agree.
yeah.
Because, just so they're aware, and they're the ones that'll follow through, that everything's been done in accordance with our decision. Another condition of approval, the suggestion in the TAM regarding the two public project limiting fences is, I believe, a good one, because you'll have one to protect the property during the demolition process, and one to limit disturbance more landward of the dune area. So an updated plan for fencing should also be drawn up. I'm in agreement with the planning department as a condition of approval. I think all of the recommended project conditions should be included in the board's determination, and for all the reasons stated, I approve this application, which I feel does meet the NRSP standards as already outlined by member Johan in 255-420, and I believe, as also stated through member Johan's reading of the standards, does comply with 255-440, and I am approving this project in its entirety.
Thank you.
They didn't leave much, did they?
No, they didn't leave much. That was a cleanup effort right
And my
there.
notes are never as neat, but anyway. I was going through all my messed up notes, but to just see what they did not cover, and I think Levy did cover just about everything. The highlights for me were, the height, which is exceeding maximum today, is going to be removed, that whole variance. The scenic easement is going to go from the dune all the way to the mean high water mark toward the ocean. And in addition, as recommended by the planners, they agreed to a 50-foot buffer revegetation from that scenic easement point. And I thought Tyler had a drawing that marked that when we were at the hearing. I don't know if you want to put that
Yeah,
up there.
shaded drawing,
That
yeah.
changed that project limiting line a little bit to show where the additional buffering would go. Right now, this house has lawn on almost all three sides of it, southward of the house, all of that, except for a small portion of lawn, is going to be included in that revegetation. The landward move of the residents, the walkway to the ocean, there's lawn in the back, there's lawn in the west, there's lawn on the east and the north. The platform along the walkway, I believe, is also scheduled to be removed. And the reduction, the only thing there, I'm not sure if the setback now is 85 feet or 83. It says 83 in the chart, and then 85 at the
Two
hearing.
different things, because
It
I
does.
took it from 85 and then saw it said 83 somewhere else.
Yeah,
I think I just stated
but-
83, so.
All right, but either way, it's a much increased setback from the dune crest. Yeah, and I do feel it meets all they've offered great revegetation and scenic easement, and what didn't you say? I think I said everything that you said, and I too am looking to approve this. I feel also it does meet the standards of 25,551, the NRSP standards, and 25,540 of the town code. I too am looking to approve this entire project.
Thank you.
And it's going to be FEMA compliant, and a one-story from a two-story.
Agreed. And once again, you were not
I
part of
was
that.
not here to clear that pipeline, so.
I agree. I really don't have much to add. This is well done. I think it's a good application. Anytime we're going to be restoring dunes, creating resiliency. One comment, I agree with you when we talk about the resiliency, moving off the dune, we are getting closer to the street, which will have an impact, but also what else has an impact are the FEMA requirements, and that's all going to have an impact on where we go in the future. So it's the nature of the beast, I think.
I thought that on behalf of the applicant, that Britton was the applicant was immediately amenable to all of the suggestions and from the planning department, and so immediately I felt like we were working in concert to try to come up with a solution.
Thank you.
Yes, good application.
Okay.
And we have the construction protocol and all in the additional conditions, right?
all that,
right.
Which they
They
agreed.
agreed to all that.
Okay. We're going to now go into a discussion regarding the senior center. We have with us, we're going to have, we have Jameson, our counsel, and we have independent counsel on this, Philip Butler, right? So he's here to answer questions. I've also asked them to give us a little bit of outline what the secret process, type 1 action as resulting with coordinated review actually means and what impact does it have. So with that, but I'm going to read the letter that was recently given to us by the town. There was an initial letter. That letter is superseded by this new letter. I'm going to read it into the record, and then I will turn it over to council to give us a brief on what our responsibilities are. And this is it's to the East Hampton Town involved agencies, Planning Board, Zoning Board, and Appeals and Architectural Review Board. It's regarding the proposed Town of East Hampton Senior Center, 403 Abraham's Path, Amagansett, New York, secret coordinated review letter and notice to declare lead agency. To whom it may concern, the Town of East Hampton Town Board is considering the construction of a new 22,000 square foot senior center, on-site parking, walking trails, and other related site improvements. The project on 7,008 acres of the premises known as 403 Abraham's Path in Amagansett, New York. Said premises being known as District 300, Section 166, Block 3, Lots 10.1 and 10.2 on the Suffolk County Tax map. The project includes the proposed subdivision of the subject premises to separate the senior center parcel, Lot 10.02, from the residence parcel, Lot 10.01. Pursuant to 6 NYCRR 617.4 of the implementing regulations of the State Environmental Quality Review Act, known as SECRA, the town board has identified the project as a type 1 action requiring coordinated environmental review among the involved agencies. Your agency has been identified as an involved agency pursuant to 6 NYCRR 617.2T because your agency may have jurisdiction to fund, approve, and/or undertake one or more aspects of the project. Accordingly, please find and close a true and complete copy of the updated full environmental assessment form, Part 1 for the project dated January 4th, 2024, with project narrative prepared by L.K. McLean Associates, PC dated November 2023, and visual renderings. Please take notice that the Town of East Hampton Town Board intends to declare itself lead agency for this project unless written objection from your agency indicating its intent to declare itself lead agency for this project is received within 30 days of the date of this letter. Any response to this letter should be in writing and directed to my attention at 300 Panagrove Place, Suite 105, East Hampton, New York, 11937, and that's addressed by Jeremy Samuelson, Planning Director. I'm now going to turn this over to council to give us a brief. I will let the zoning board know that I am prepared to make a motion or a vote on this, but if we don't tonight, I want to, it'd be appropriate maybe to do it next week. But I think we have the information before us that possibly we can make that vote. So who wants to talk? Who wants to speak? Bill?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, Philip Butler with the law firm Farrell Fritz. We were recently retained by the town board to serve as special land use counsel on the senior center project. So just to give you the background on how we got here, this project has been around roughly since 2014. It's gone through several iterations which precede our involvement with the town, but our understanding is that in about 2021, the project took its current form at 403 Abrams Path, with the version that's now before you. So after a long vetting process and some public input, the town board decided that it would like to try to move this project from its conceptual phase to now its approvals phase. And part of that is compliance with the State Environmental Quality Review Act, which is SECRA. And what SECRA tells us is that, as you may be familiar, compliance with SECRA is a prerequisite to any decision that is made, any final appealable decision. So one of the procedural steps in SECRA at the outset is to identify who are the involved agencies. And an involved agency is any governmental agency that has the authority to approve, fund, or undertake a project. This board would be one of those involved agencies under the town code because the project in its current form would require zoning variances, area variances. So SECRA requires that before one board assumes the role of lead agency, which is the agency that kind of spearheads the environmental review of a project, that notice be sent out to all of the other involved agencies saying, hey, we want to take the reins as the lead agency for the environmental review. Do you have a problem with that? So the notice that you've received, which obviously was a little long-winded, but it contained all the information that the town board is required to provide in order to basically allow you to make your decision as to whether or not you would like to serve as the lead agency. As you know, you got a second notice. The first notice came to you, unfortunately, without the attachments, which are the environmental assessment forms that start that review process. So we reissued the notification with the required attachments. So the options for this board, there are two. You can either consent to the town board serving as lead agency for the environmental review, or you can object, and in which case you would be basically nominating yourself to serve in that role. So those are the two options before the board. And I just want to note a couple of things that are important perhaps for this consideration. This is not a question of whether or not the project is going to receive ultimate approval. This is not you consenting to ultimate approval of the project. This is not saying that you are waiving your options to weigh in on the project. This is simply, I'll call it an administrative step in the environmental approval, just to establish who is going to run the show for the environmental review of the project. This is not an actual approval or a waiver. I hope that covers enough, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Are there any questions from the board?
Well, my main concern was in this, from reviewing it, was exactly the third point you just made, and whether or not we were going to lose our option to weigh in on any approvals. What was the impact of relinquishing lead on this and having the town take the lead? Was it going to affect in any way the way in which we could make future comments about the environmental impact or any other impacts that should come under our jurisdiction?
So the town board, assuming lead agency status, has no impact on your option to comment or weigh in on on the project. Again, this is just the point in the process where the lead agency is established. So what happens down the road, this has no impact on that.
Okay, so we're still an involved agency regardless, right? And then this, getting the full environmental assessment form also doesn't preclude us from anything in the future, right?
No, the town board is required to provide that form as part of the notice that goes to your board.
Okay. Well, I went through the secret process looking at those steps, so do we want our opinions?
But I also
Well, I mean, again, this, what's before us is really a narrow scope of what's before us, right? Do we object or do we not object?
Right.
And that's really what's before us, so.
Well, okay, I'll give you my vote. I don't object to the town board being the lead agency after having the review and knowing that we're still an involved agency. Yeah, I don't.
I agree. I'd say it slightly differently based more on the letter than quite the way you put it. Would be fine to not declare ourselves as the ZBA, as lead agency.
It wouldn't belong in front of us anyway.
No, the project scope is not what we would lead.
All right, I'm sorry.
Okay. No, I consent to the town board having lead agency status.
Yeah, I had apprehensions until we had an opportunity to read through the documentation provided to us, and I agree, I consent with this. I think that's probably the proper way for us to move forward.
I agree, and it was actually good to read through the EAF and see how it was thoroughly written out, done, so.
And that whole secret document.
Even if it was going to, it doesn't belong in front of us, that's my feeling. So I too consent to them, so it looks like we have a 5-0.
So just as a point of order, I would ask that the board actually adopt a resolution to that effect so that your secretary can put that in writing to the town board, because the town board does like to collect written consents. So the town board currently has consents from two of the county, I think two of the county agencies. So we're trying to get all of the involved agencies on board before further action can be taken.
You want us to make a vote on it, right?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so do we have a motion on the floor?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I mean, it's a simple motion, right?
Yeah.
I make a motion that in the case of the town of East Hampton, new senior center, 403 Abraham's Path, Amagansett, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-166-3-10.2. I make a motion that we all consent to having the town board have lead agency status.
A second.
I concur.
I concur.
I concur. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Interesting.
Next,
You don't know.
we have two requests to keep the record open. One for 29 Sanger LLC at 29 Sanger Place in Montauk, Suffolk Tax Number 300-31-5-4, and that's to keep the record open until February 27, 24.
And what's the reason for that?
He's looking into whether or not the swearing in.
Yeah, this swearing in, but then I saw something about foil. What is he foiling?
I don't.
Oh, that I don't know.
He has a right to foil, and if
He
it's,
does.
yeah.
Even though our decision is based on the hearing? I guess there's.
Well, I think, well, maybe Jameson can chime in on it.
I saw the letter. I did communicate with his office, but it was more because they originally requested February 20th, and because the board is not meeting on that day, I asked if they were amenable to an extra week, provided that what they requested the hearing be left open for was something that my office, me personally, might have to be responding to, so I don't want it to close on a date that we're not here. I asked about the FOIL to one of his, someone who works in his office. She wasn't entirely clear. It's possible they might be trying to get information from the clerk's office, because I am also asking the town clerk for potential guidance on that question, because, you know, she understands the open meetings law and things like that, but I can't speak to that. So I think, unfortunately, we're either going to have to say yes or no and wait to see what his submission says.
See what happens.
See what happens. But I personally am okay with it, like I said, because I would like the time to respond.
Right.
Okay, all right, in that case.
Thank you, Terry.
I guess I'm okay with it.
Thank you. We have a motion.
Yeah, let me use, I lost the current meeting. So for the application of 29 Sanger LLC at 29 Sanger Place in Montauk, tax map 300-31-5-4, I make a motion to keep the written record open through February 27, 2024.
I'll second it.
I concur.
I'm recused.
Oh, that's right.
I concur. Next, we have Anna Kinger at 60 Osprey Road in Montauk, Suffolk, tax map number 300-131-7-3, and this is a request to keep the record open until March 5th, 2024.
Okay.
Reason for
We have a motion?
Did I do it? I'll do
You
the
do it?
motion.
Okay.
I'll do the motion. Then in the case of Anna Kenga, 60 Osprey Road, Montauk, it's actually Amagansett, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-131-07-03. I'd like to make a motion to keep the record open until March 5th, 2024.
Second.
Concur.
I'm also recused on this one.
Are you recused?
Yeah,
Oh,
both of them.
yeah.
Just that
And I
abstaining?
concur.
No, this is a recusal.
I concur, thank you. Next, we have minutes approval, draft minutes of January 23rd, 2024.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve the draft minutes of January 23rd, 2024 for the East Hampton Town Zoning Board of Appeals.
Second.
Oh, right.
I concur.
All right, we have two resolutions.
You're not recusing on the minutes?
I earned my plaque, that's why.
Oh, let me see it. Oh, you got the picture.
We have two resolutions this evening, one from Jasmine and Carlo DeFlorio at 57 South Fairview, Montauk, tax map number 300-28-3-5.
Oh, this was mine. Okay, well, I did review the resolution, and if you remember this, it's the one on the corner, across the street from the Montauk Downs Golf Course on the corner, and there were some assorted things, driveways that had been changed, one driveway had been removed, there was fencing in the wetlands, some other patio thing, and the applicant also wanted to increase the access out of a cellarway and square off a deck on the northern part of the property and stairs going off that deck. So some of these things have been done without permits, others were pending, and ultimately they agreed to move the fencing out of the wetlands, they agreed to some revegetation, so ultimately I think the clearing actually went down. It will ultimately when it's done, and some of the other improvements increased setbacks. So this wasn't a unanimous approval, so we'll make a motion. For Jasmine and Carlo DeFlorio at 57 South Fairview Avenue in Montauk, tax map 300-028-03-05, to approve the resolution as written.
I'll second it.
Thank
I
you.
concur.
I was not involved.
Thank you. All right, next we have Cito SJ Holdings at LLC at 55 Marine Boulevard, Amagansett, Suffolk tax map number 300-178-1-9.
As of May, Well, remember that this was a situation where there were several requests on this property. One was to replace an oceanside deck in kind. That deck was sizable. We had concerns about a construction protocol that would protect the property on the seaward side. The vegetation was very well established there. They also had a small enclosure on the west side of the property. A major portion of the application dealt with a swimming pool that was to go on the road side of the house. There had been a previous denial by this board in the 90s, 98, I think it was, and we had to take that into consideration. The elevation of the pool, the size of the pool, the revegetation plan all factored into our decision on this. It was approved 3-1. We had a four-person board that night, so it was 3-1 as an approval. So therefore, in the case of CEDO SJ Holdings LLC, 55 Marine Boulevard, Amagansett, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-178-01-09, I'd like to make a motion to accept the resolution as written.
Second.
Concur.
Concur. You'll catch up.
Yeah, we're almost there.
Vice Chair.
Vice Chair, okay. I make a motion to adjourn the meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals at 9:00.
What happened to Trip?
I'll second.
There's only two.
Trip was on. We took Trip off.
You concur?
I concur. No, I want to stay here all night.
We did the post-hearing decision on.
We just moved it.
It was in the wrong
I
place.
had the old.
Jameson's not that quick.
I had the old agenda.
You have that resolution ready?
Yeah. I just did it already.
You have it?
No. You guys just did the post-hearing discussion on it. I didn't type it up
Oh,
yet.
you didn't type it up yet?
No, ma'am.
No way.
I did not know how you were going to come out on that.
Mike's off.
I was gonna say, are we out?
Yes.